Hey everybody, Patty Ann here. Welcome back to step 5 of the 5-part series of getting to know your silhouette. This week's is on one of my very favorites, the trace tool. So I think you're going to love this class. Now let me tell you one last thing though. If you're enjoying these classes and you like the way I teach, it kind of jives with the way you learn, I offer classes once a week, every single Saturday for an hour. They're live, which means you can participate, work through the projects with me if you'd like, and ask questions as you go. Or if you're not able to join the rest of us on Saturdays, you can always watch the recorded version. So if you're not sure about those classes, join us over on my Facebook groups and ask there, or ask somebody privately there so they won't feel obligated to say something nice, and just see what they think about my classes. I think that you will really love them and you'll get a lot from them. I know people are loving them and it's a lot of fun. We really do have a lot of fun. So anyway, without further ado, as they say, let's get started with this week's lesson, which is all about the trace tool. Okay, before we get into silhouette, I do want to show you something very important, and that is this. Go to google.com and I want you to type in an image of what you're going to look for. Let's say we're looking for Mickey Mouse, okay, and I'm going to hit enter. Now, when I come to Mickey Mouse, the first thing I want to do, and I'm using Chrome today, is I come up here to where it says Images, and I click on that, and then all I'm seeing are images of Mickey Mouse. But that's not all we have to do. If you want to get a super duper really great trace, what you need to do, now make sure that you're using an image that you can use legally. These are all copyrighted images, so you'll have to use these, at your own discretion for maybe your own child. That would be fine, but not to sell ever. But this is just for our teaching purposes today. So the next thing that I would do after I get these images is I'm going to come up here to where it says Tools right here. And what I want to do is I'm going to come over here to Type first. And the type that I want are clip art. Okay, now I'm still not done though. The next thing I want to do under Tools is come way over here to where it says Size. And I want to come down here to where it says Larger Than, and the largest number here, 1024 by 768. And what that does is it ensures that we get a really, really good image that will be easy to trace. So the next thing that I do like to do is I like to make sure that the image doesn't have that many shadows or really any shadowing. If it has a lot of shadows, I prefer using those images for print then cut. But for these, there's one more thing I think under More Tools. Yes, if I click up here under More Tools, I can come down here where it says Show Sizes. And then rather than having to click on or highlight each image to see what size it is, it'll automatically have them all shown here for me. And I can look at a glance which ones are nice and large and will be usable. So I'm just going to click this guy over here on the very right hand side to open him up. And then once I have him opened, all I'm going to do is I'm going to right click on him and say copy image. Now, if I don't have business edition, I'll have to save this to my computer. But since I have the business edition of the software, all I have to do is right click and copy image, open up Silhouette. Here I am, right click and paste. And there he is. So as you'll notice, he comes in with this white box behind him. And there are other ways he may come in, and we research those kind of things in the classes that I told you about on Saturday mornings. But I can show you right now, if I was to come over here to send this, look what's going to cut, the outer edge of him. Even if I click it on cut, just that outer box is going to cut. So that's obviously not what we want. So this is where the trace function comes in, and this thing is fabulous. So all you do is come over here to this thing that looks like a piece of toast, the trace panel. Click on it to open it, and if you'd like to, you can move it over closer. And then you're going to go select trace area. Well, notice up here there are some other options. This trace by color is really a great function to use sometimes, and we go over that in our other classes as well. But today, the select trace area will work just fine for our purposes. So I'm just going to highlight over him, and I'm going to look and see how well he's turned out. He looks pretty good, except for his shirt and pants went together as one piece. So I'm going to move this threshold down a little bit so that I can see more details. So there it's getting a little bit ugly. See, I don't want it that far so that I see black lines, and I can use this bug tool and scroll in again. And so that looks okay, but I'm a little worried that some of these lines aren't over here on his hand are not one straight line, one line, but there are gaps in it. So if I turn the threshold up, that fixes that. His little pants are still good. There's something funny going on right here, but I can fix that later on it where his tail attaches. So I'm pretty happy with that. I'm going to zoom back out, and I will just zoom out a little bit more. I'll just say trace. So that will move this out of the way, and I'm left with this, which is perfect. So all I have to do now is grab the outer edge of this, and what I usually like to do is grab the outer edge of my trace and turn it to a light color by coming up here to the color swatch that is not in my final product. So this light blue will work perfectly. And I don't know if you can see, I'll zoom in so you can, notice that that blue is all the way around him. So that's exactly what we want for right now. So the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to come up here to click on him to highlight him, come up here, and I need to move this up a little bit so you can see, and come up here to where it says Object, Release Compound Path. And when I do that, it's going to put a whole bunch of little boxes all over Mickey. Release Compound Path. Okay, that's what we want. Click off. I'm going to click back on again. And the outermost edge, I'm going to make black. So that's exactly what we need already. Pretty much, I see a problem right here and something going on right here. But let's start with these other things. So since we made this a compound path, I can go through here and just click on things and change their colors. So I'm going to change his pants to a red. I'm going to change his hand to white. His other hand to white. I'm going to change his buttons. Looks like they are also white. So I could hold down my shift key and grab them both. Change them both to white. And let's see, we need to change the color of his face, and I'm not sure what color to use, so I'm just going to use the eyedropper, which is right here, and I'm going to click on the original. There we go, and it changed it to exactly the color we needed. Okay, I can see I need to change the color of his tongue. Click on it to highlight it. Again, I'm not sure which color I want to use, so I'm going to click up here, get the eyedropper, and click on the color of his tongue that they used. Okay. Now the shoes are supposed to be that kind of gold color, so I clicked on one, hold down my shift key, click on the other, and again I'm not sure which color I want to use, so I'll use the eyedropper, change it to gold. Perfect. Alright, let's see, the last couple of things that I need to do before I get into a little bit of detail work is this. I'm going to change these two cuffs. Now notice that time when I clicked on it, the nodes came available. Those are those little squares. I don't want those right now. If you look up here, you'll see that the node tool is selected. I just want the regular selection. So I'm going to come up here and click on the arrow, or I could simply click the letter V as in Vicky on my keyboard. There we go. And I'm going to hold down my shift key and get this other one. And I can change both of those to white at the same time. Perfect. All right, so let's change these also to gold. hold down my shift and get this other one. Change those both to that gold. Now, since that was the last color I picked with the color picker or the eyedropper, I can just click on it. Okay, he's looking pretty good except for a few things. Let's scroll in and look at his eyeballs. Let's get the bug tool. Let's click. And whoopsie, click on his eyeballs and get in close. Now, if you'll notice, this is not closed right here, and that's why that stayed blue like that. And there's an opening over on this eye as well. I didn't think we were going to have to work with nodes in this class, but we will. So let's scroll in just a tiny bit further with this one. And I'm going to double click on this. That brings up the nodes. See, these are those little boxes. I'm going to right click on this node right here, and I'm going to say break path. Now when I do that, notice it broke that thing apart into two separate paths, which is exactly what we want. I'm going to keep them separated a little bit. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to add a node here actually. So I'm going to click there to add a node. Just click there, and then once it's added, I'm going to say break path. And again, where that red is, I can drag it apart and drag this piece apart. Whoopsie. Okay, what I'm going to do is bring this one down, and when they get close, they pop together. I'm going to move this one over like this a little bit. And I'll bring this one over to touch that red one, and they'll pop together just like that as well. I'm going to bring that out a little bit. Okay, now I can change this to black if I want to. But I want you to notice something. When I move the black around back behind here, see how that's just cut right out of his face? There's not actually a black piece. We're going to do that right now. So let me show you how to do that. I'm going to move his face. Whoopsie, I got to Control Z. I'm going to move the black back into place where it should be. Okay, that looks pretty good to me. I could hit the arrow on my keyboard if I want to move it a little bit. Now, all I have to do is click on the blue, hold down my shift key, click on the color of his face, and then we're going to come over here to another panel. We're just running all over the place today. The panel we're going to use is this one called the Modify panel. We've used it in the past. I'm going to click on that to open it. And once that Modify panel is open, we're going to say Subtract. So now what that's done is it subtracted that part of the eye right out. That's perfect, just the way we want it to be. Now, we want to change this part inside of his eye to white. So I can do it on this one easily. I can change it to white by clicking on it and changing it. But this one, I cannot. If I try to click on just that eyeball, notice it clicks on his whole face. And the reason is this: you got to be a little bit of a sleuth to do these things. Kind of look in here really closely, and you can see there's a gap right here. So we need to fix that gap. So once again, what we're going to do is double click on this to get the nodes again. Then I can right click on this node and say break path. So it's turning kind of weird, but don't worry, we'll fix it. I've got to grab just that red one and move it aside. Let's see. That side will go that way, and this side will go this way. And then I need to connect it up to this part. So I'm going to click on this node right here, right click, and say break path. And right again, this red one's going to break apart. Oh, look at that. It just jumped right over, just what we need. And this one's jumped over to there. Now you might need to adjust some of this stuff a little bit, but we can learn some of that in another class as well. But let's scroll back out now and see what we got. Now, as I mentioned to you, there's a few pieces in here that I don't think are necessary, like this blue piece here and this here. So all I have to do is I can scroll in again, and I can get the nodes for that, click on one, and just start hitting delete on my keyboard. That got rid of all of those. I can find this one over here, double click to get the nodes, click on one, hit delete on my keyboard, and again that gets rid of those. Now I believe these outer parts of his buttons should be black, So I'm going to click on that, hold down my shift key and click on the red. And once again, I'll come over to the modify panel and say subtract. Do the same thing again on this blue one. Click on the blue, hold down my shift, click on the red, say subtract. Okay, let's zoom out and see how he looks. Okay, I'm saying he's looking pretty well, almost perfect, except for one last thing that I don't like, and it's this blue spot. Well, two things. Remember that part between his tail I didn't like. So actually a few more things I'm seeing now. Let's look here. There's this part on his tail that I don't like, so I'm going to get the nodes and start deleting some of these and see what happens. Okay, that worked perfectly. Now it's just all black. This blue right here I don't need. So what I can do if I want to is just totally get rid of it by hitting delete on my keyboard. And that's what I think I'll do on that one. This blue right here, I don't want this blue, but if I move it out, I just have that black. So what I'm going to do is click on the blue, hold down my shift key, click on the black, click on the blue, hold down shift, click on the black, and say, again to the modify panel, subtract, and that subtracted that spot right out of there. Okay, let's see if there's anything else. Okay, I'm thinking he looks pretty perfect. So what I could do now if I have a silhouette machine is I can group these according to colors if I'd like. So I can come up here to edit, select by color, then I would go to by fill over, let's get rid of this so you don't need it, and then I can select by fill color. So I can go ahead and click all the black and then right click it and say group. But that's just one piece, so I don't really need to do anything with that. The next thing I can do is I can go to the gold, right click and say group. Now those will stay together perfectly. I can go to the blue, which there really shouldn't be any blue, so I'm gonna delete that little blue piece. I must have left something. The red I think is already one piece, but we'll right click. Oh, it must be one piece, so we'll just bring it over here. Okay, the white, there's a lot of white. So we can right click and just group those all together. So when they cut, they'll cut on a piece like this for our vinyl, and they're easy to do. This is just one piece, and this is just one piece. So let's grab all of him, not this guy. We can delete him now. So now if you go over to make this or to send it, so notice when he comes in, this would be perfect for a print then cut if I had put the registration marks on there. But I don't want him like that. I want him to cut all of the little pieces. So I got to highlight him and then say cut. And then all the little pieces are going to cut. It's by fill. So this is the way it's going to cut. So the first thing that I would do is I would cut the black piece out. And if I was doing it in cardstock, I would leave it set to cardstock. After that's done, I would unclick that. And what I could do if I want to is I could grab the black and get it out of there. Then I'm going to click on the gold, and that's all that's going to cut. And of course I can move it up here to where I want it to cut. Once that's done, I'll take that off the mat if I'd like to. Then I'll go to the red and I can move it up here to cut it. Once that's done, uncheck that, do the white, and move that up if I'd like. Cut that, and then move that. And then the last two pieces are the tannish color for his face, which I would cut and take that out. And then the little mouth or the little tongue, highlight that and cut that. So that's how easy it is to do a trace. Let me show you one more really quickly. Let's just bring in another something. This one's cute. I'll right click and bring this one in, copy, bring it in, and I'm just going to move this out of here and go back to the design area, and I'll get rid of all of this first. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're just going to paste this right into place. Paste. Very cute. So now we're just going to click on trace, select the trace area. Looks pretty good. I can adjust this if I want to. I think it looks pretty good like that, so I'll just say trace. Move this out. Now, I don't know if you noticed, but there's some little text to the left of the colored one over here. So that text also got traced. So I'm going to get rid of that text. Here's just a few little drops of it over here. Notice, okay? So I'm going to get rid of that. I'm just double clicking on it, click, and then I can delete those nodes and it's gone. Okay, let's scroll back out and I can just begin coloring it. So I'm going to look at all those nodes. If I was trying to mess with the nodes, I could come over here and click on point editing and say simplify, and it'll get rid of a lot of them. That makes it easier. But I'm not going to use those right now. What I'm going to do right now, the first thing, like I've shown you before, I'm going to change this into a color that I'm not going to use. It just makes it easier for me in the beginning to do that. Then the next thing I'm going to do is go up, highlight it again, come up here to Object, Release Compound Path. That makes all the little squares. And now if I want to, I can click on the outer one and make it black. Okay. So that black worked really well for that. There's just a few places that we'll need to fix. So for example, if I click on this place right here, and then hold down my Shift key and click on the pink, I should be able to come over to the Modify panel and subtract. Perfect. So look at his nose, or her nose. It's supposed to be black. So again, if I want to get that nose out of there and not have to put a black piece in, it'll just show the black from behind, all I have to do is this. Click on the nose, hold down the Shift key, click on the pink color, and then come to the Modify panel and say subtract. So now look and see. The nose is popped out. We don't have to cut out a black nose, but the black from the backing, this big old backing, shows through. Let's see. So we want to do the face. And again, I'm not sure the color to use, so I come up here to the color swatch, get the eyedropper and click, and that changed it perfectly. I can change the color of the pajamas to blue if I'd like. Then I'll make it the exact same color of blue. Okay, it didn't get all of those pink pieces, so let me click on this, hold down my Shift key and get these others. And then I'll change those to blue, and it's the last piece, or the last color I picked, so just like that. The little hand here should be white. Notice I got the nodes again. I don't really want those because I can't change the color, but all I have to do to get to the select tool, which is what I want, this arrow up here, is to click the V for Victoria or Vicky on my keyboard, and that changes it to this tool. And I can change that hand then to white. And I want to change the eyes to white, so I'm going to click this, and change them both to white. And now the last thing, well, I have two things to do. The little tongue here, it's in two parts. Actually, I could leave the tongue that color if I like it pink. So the only other thing I have to do is I notice in his foot down here, rather than this being a hole cut through, look at that, it's a piece put on top of his pajamas. I don't want it like that. I want that to just cut out so you can see the black underneath. So all I have to do is click on this, hold down my Shift key, click on this, and say subtract. There it is. The black will now show through. It's a hole. So this is ready to cut then. And if I want to, once again, what I can do is come up here to Edit, select by color. Fill is already selected. So I can select all the blue first, because remember there was more than one piece. I can right click and say group. So all those will stay together as one piece. Now if you notice these red lines here, they're nothing to worry about. They will not print or they will not do anything. They're just the cut lines. If they do bother you, you can come up here. The blue part up here to the left is where you do the fill color. This is the line color. You can change the line color to transparent if you want to by clicking this box to the left of the eyedropper. Watch what happens to the little red lines when I make them transparent. Gone, see? And then it'll look just like that. So this was just one piece. We don't have to group anything there. I don't know. What is this? Was that supposed to be part? No, that's his tongue. That's his tongue. Okay. So the tongue, we will want to group that together. So I can grab those both over here by selecting by color. The hand is just one. Wait, there's eyeballs too. So once again, we can find the white, and then all of the white is selected. Doesn't look like that is selected. Click on the white again. Okay, yeah, they're all selected. They have the nodes again. If I want to group them, all I have to do is hit Control G. They're a group, and that is it. So then we would just take this and send it to be made. Obviously, I have to make sure that everything is within the cut lines. And once again, I'd uncheck everything first. I'd click on the blue, move it on the mat to where I want it to be, where I'm going to have my vinyl, and click and cut it. Change, obviously, if I'm not using cardstock, I would change that here. If I was using vinyl, change it to vinyl down here. Cut that. Could go to the pink next. Uncheck the blue because I'm done with that. Find the little pinkies. There they are. Put them up here or wherever I have the pink on my mat. And what I could do if I wanted to is this. I could put this color up in this corner on my mat, the pink up there, the black down here in this corner, and the white in this corner. Then I could have all of these checked. And I could even tell it exactly which material I'm using for each one. And it would change automatically if I was using the auto blade. If I was using the auto blade, it would come through. Let's say I changed this to something else, cotton canvas printable. If I had on the auto blade, before it was to cut this one, it would automatically change. And there are some other things that you can do if you're not using the auto blade, such as put a pause in there, but that's a little bit more advanced, and we teach that in another class. So I hope you understand and you're beginning to appreciate how well this trace function works for making your own SVGs for your private use using images that are legal to use. And it's just a lot of fun to be able to make your own SVGs and not have to buy them anymore. So thank you again so much for joining me. I hope you enjoyed this 5-part series and you found it useful. Please tell your friends about it. I'm going to keep it running for a while longer so they can start at the very beginning and work through these 5 steps. Also, please consider joining me over at Patreon. It's only $5 a month, and you get 1-hour-long classes that go over different topics each week, and we just have a really good time. We start meeting at 9:30 a.m. because a lot of us like to get to class early and just talk and gab and show things we've been working on. It's through Zoom, so we can see each other. And then probably at 10 o'clock the class starts, and it goes to 11 o'clock. So again, thank you so much for joining me, and I hope to see you in Patreon. Bye-bye.